It is the day after Thanksgiving, and I just want to have a little talk with you. So, yesterday, thankfully, I was able to stay on track. I did have a Zavia after my meal, and a Zavia is pretty much like flavored carbonated water sweetened with stevia. And I felt good when I woke up this morning. I wasn't bloated, I didn't feel lethargic, and it felt good. So, while I did well yesterday, and quite honestly, because I'm the one who did all of the cooking in my house yesterday, it was easier for me to stay on track because I made some keto sides for my family, but I made the decision to just remain within the carnivore zone yesterday, right? Because I felt like, except minus the Xavier, because I felt like that's what works best for me still right now. So I wasn't really tempted by the sides that I made for my family, and I was able to stay on track. And while I did well yesterday, I can reflect on my journey and think about times where I didn't necessarily do well, where I fell off the bandwagon. Some of it was very much intentional, where I went into a situation saying, listen, I know that today's gonna be a cheat day. It is what it is. It's about to go down, right? And then other times I would go in with a resolve to say I'm gonna stay on track, and then something would be too tempting and I would have some of it. So after the fact, I would always feel just yuck in my body. And the longer I go with this way of eating, the easier it is for me to just be like, yeah, I'm good. Now, to be fully transparent, I am not 100% carnivore all of the time. There are things that I notice that I can tolerate and it's not an issue for me. So, like I've said this before, if I feel when I go out like having lettuce with my burger, I go ahead and do that. Occasionally, I'll have some avocado, right? And I do different spices now with when I season my meats. I'm okay with that. So, I do what works for me, but for the most part, I am pretty much still, mostly carnivore. So, with all that said, when I did fall off the bandwagon in the past, I would wake up in the morning and just feel horrible. And I had to get to the place of asking myself, like, was it really worth it, Anika? Right? And for some people, maybe yesterday you fell off the bandwagon and it was very much intentional, and you're like, yes, it was absolutely worth it. If that's the case, then hey, that's you have to do what works well for you. But if you're waking up this morning and going, oh, this was so not worth it, I think it's good to kind of have that dialogue with yourself and remind yourself, why am I doing this? What are some of the benefits that I see from eating this way? And that moment of indulging in what I know is probably not the best thing for me, you know, is it worth it in the long run? And I think having this constant dialogue with yourself makes it a lot easier as time go on to not always fall into those pitfall, right? So I just want to encourage you, if you fell off the bandwagon yesterday, you're just like, ugh, I feel horrible today, but I have all these leftovers, so let me go ahead and just eat all of these leftovers, and then I'm gonna get back on track. I encourage you to not do that. Don't like dig the hole deeper, because I already know with the leftovers, it just creates a greater appetite for more of those things, and then it's going to be a lot harder to kind of, pull yourself back. So I just want to say that, you know what, if you fell off the wagon yesterday and you're feeling kind of just, ugh, out of it, remind yourself of why you're doing what you're doing in terms of your food choices, and try to get your head back on the game and focus. Now, I plan throughout the month of December to kind of pop in a little bit more frequently and just share some encouragement along the way, because research has shown that this is the month, the holidays is where we kind of get ourselves in trouble. I can't promise you that I'm going to get on every single day, because realistically that may not happen, but I do intend to come on to just share some encouragement and even share some meals that I'm having along the way to help you, if you're feeling kind of pulled in a certain direction, to just really go off on the deep end, if you will, and just eating all the things that you know that you shouldn't. So, anyway, if you fell off, just encourage you to get your head back on in the game. Just bring it back in, right? And let's focus. So, with all that said, I want to show you some things that went on in my kitchen this morning. All right, you be blessed. Right here, I have the bones from yesterday's turkey. And I also threw in some additional frozen chicken bones that I had from previous meals that were made. And I'm just going to add a little bit more water to my Instant Pot, and I'm going to make some bone broth with it. So I just want to encourage you to use every single part of that turkey, especially if you're into bone broth. Now over here, I have some silicone containers. Once the broth is done, I allow it to cool and I leave some in a mason jar in the refrigerator for immediate use. But if I'm going to have a large amount of broth, right? So I'm going to freeze some of it. So once it's cooled, I'm going to pour the broth into these silicone containers and pop them in the freezer. And then I'll just kind of have these on hand for when I need them. So once they're frozen, I just kind of pop them out and put them in a Ziploc bag and store them in my freezer. And it's just really convenient for when I want to cook something, or if I just want some broth. And I find that the smaller portions work really well. So some in a mason jar in the refrigerator for immediate use, and the rest goes into these silicone containers. My first meal of the day is some turkey skin from yesterday's turkey. And I just put it in the oven to crisp it up even more. A little bit of turkey meat, some suet, and some ground beef, just a little bit of ground beef. So I guess we can call this a meat bowl. It's so delicious. It's really good.